Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The Pennsylvania heat clung to Russ Rayner's work shirt as he stepped through the front door of his colonial home. The smell of dinner cooking drifted from the kitchen, but before he could call out to Lennon, small feet thundered down the stairs. "Daddy, Daddy, look what I drew." 7-year-old Olive crashed into his legs, waving a piece of construction paper above her head. Her dark hair bounced as she jumped up and down, eyes bright with excitement. Russ dropped his lunchbox and crouched down. "Let me see, kiddo." Olive thrust the paper into his hands. The drawing showed their bedroom in crayon, the blue comforter, the wooden nightstand, even the lamp Lennon always left on. But beside the bed, looming over a sleeping figure, stood a tall, black silhouette. "That's you sleeping." Olive pointed to the small figure in the bed. "And that's the man who watches you." The paper crinkled in Russ's grip. "What man, sweetheart? He comes every night after you fall asleep." Olive's voice dropped to a whisper. "He just stands there and watches." A chill ran down Russ's spine despite the summer heat. His father's voice echoed in his memory. "Trust your gut, son. When something feels wrong, it usually is." "Olive, honey, where exactly does this man stand?" "Right there." She pointed to his side of the bed in the drawing. "Sometimes he touches your hair." Russ's jaw tightened. "How long has this been happening?" "Lots of nights. I saw him when I got water." Olive tilted her head. "Don't you feel him, Daddy?" Before Russ could answer, Lennon appeared in the doorway. Her blonde hair was perfect despite the heat, and she wore the same bright smile that had captivated him 8 years ago. "There's my hardworking man." She walked over and kissed his cheek. "What's got you two looking so serious?" Russ held up the drawing. "Olive says someone's been in our bedroom at night." Lennon glanced at the paper and laughed. "Oh, honey, you know how imaginative she is. Remember when she was convinced there were dinosaurs in the garage? This is different." Russ studied his wife's face. No concern. No questions about locks or security. Just dismissal. "Is it?" Lennon ruffled Olive's hair. "Tell Daddy about the monster you drew last week." "That was different," Olive said quietly. "The man is real." "Of course he is, sweetheart." Lennon's voice carried that patient tone adults used with children. "Just like the purple elephant that lives in your closet." Russ watched the light fade from Olive's eyes. His daughter looked down at her shoes and mumbled, "Never mind. Why don't you go wash up for dinner?" Lennon said, "I made your favorite grilled cheese." Olive trudged upstairs without another word. Russ waited until her bedroom door closed. "She seemed pretty convinced," he said. Lennon shrugged. "Kids have wild imaginations." "You're not seriously worried about some imaginary intruder, are you?" "I'm worried about why our daughter thinks someone's been in our room." "Russ." Lennon placed her hand on his arm. "You work 60 hours a week. You're exhausted. Olive's picking up on your stress and creating stories to explain it." The explanation sounded reasonable. It should have been reasonable. But Russ's father had taught him to trust facts over feelings. And the fact was that Olive had never lied to him before. "Maybe," he said, that night, after Lennon fell asleep. Russ lay awake listening. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside the window, made his muscles tense. At 2:15 a.m., he heard something, a soft footstep in the hallway. He held his breath and waited. Nothing, just the hum of the air conditioner and Lennon's gentle breathing beside him. But when he finally drifted off, he dreamed of a black figure standing over their bed. The next morning, Russ drove to the electronics store during his lunch break. The kid behind the counter couldn't have been older than 19, with sleeve tattoos and gauged ears. "You want something small?" the kid said, leading him to a display case. "This one's about the size of a thumb drive. Records in high definition, motion-activated, 8-hour battery life." "What about night vision?" "Sure thing. This baby will pick up anything in infrared." Popular with worried parents, if you know what I mean. Russ bought 2 cameras and a small monitor. He spent his afternoon break reading the instruction manual in his truck. That evening, while Lennon gave Olive a bath, Russ installed the first camera behind a picture frame on the dresser. The angle gave a clear view of his side of the bed. He hid the second camera in his sock drawer as backup. "What are you doing up there?" Lennon called from downstairs. "Just looking for my good shoes," he called back. "Found them." They went to bed at their usual time. Lennon read a magazine, while Russ pretended to check emails on his phone. She turned off the light at 10:30. "Love you," she murmured, rolling on her side. "Love you too." Russ lay still for an hour, waiting. His muscles ached from staying motionless, but he forced himself to breathe slowly and evenly. At 11:45, genuine exhaustion finally pulled him under that he woke at 6 a.m. to his alarm and immediately checked the camera. The memory card was corrupted. Hours of static, then nothing. "Damn thing's defective," he muttered. "What's defective?" Lennon asked from the bathroom. "Work stuff. Cheap equipment." But as he scrolled through the static, one frame flashed clear for a split second. A tall, dark shape beside the bed. Russ's hand shook as he replayed the sequence. Static, static, flash of darkness, more static. He couldn't be sure what he'd seen. That night, he activated the backup camera hidden in the smoke detector. This one had a wider angle and better night vision. He also placed a small piece of clear tape across the bottom of their bedroom door, invisible unless you knew to look for it. The next morning, the tape was broken. Russ started keeping a notebook. Small things at first times Lennon said she'd been one place when he'd called another. Receipts that didn't match her stories. The way she always showered immediately after going to the grocery store, that on Tuesday, she said she'd spent the morning cleaning the basement. But the basement was exactly as messy as it had been Sunday night. Russ wrote it down on Wednesday. She claimed to have lunch with her sister, but when he mentioned it to his mother-in-law, she said Lennon hadn't seen her sister in weeks. He wrote that down too. Olive kept drawing. New pictures every day, always featuring the black figure. In one, the figure held something long and thin. In another, it stood closer to the bed. "Look, Daddy," Olive showed him the latest drawing on Friday evening. Now he has a knife. The crayon drawing showed their bedroom again, but this time the black figure's hand clearly held a blade that Russ's blood turned cold. "Olive, has this man ever talked to you?" "No. He just watches you sleep. Sometimes he touches your face real gentle-like. When you see him, where are you?" "In the hallway. I hide behind the door, so he can't see me." Russ knelt down to her level. "Olive, this is very important. Have you told Mommy about the knife?" "Uh-huh. This morning." "What did she say?" Olive's face scrunched up. "She said I was being silly and that scary pictures give people bad dreams." That evening, Russ confronted Lennon in the kitchen while she made dinner. "Olive drew another picture today." "Did she?" Lennon didn't look up from chopping vegetables. "What was it this time?" "The same man, but now he's holding a knife." Lennon's hand paused for just a moment before continuing. "She's been watching too much TV. Maybe we should limit her screen time. Or maybe we should take this seriously." "Take what seriously, Russ?" Lennon set down the knife and turned to face him. "Our 7-year-old's imagination? Should I call the police and report an imaginary intruder? She's never made up stories like this before. Children go through phases. Remember when she insisted there were fairies in the garden? This is different, and you know it." Lennon sighed. "What do you want me to say? That I think someone's breaking into our house to stand over your sleeping body? It's ridiculous." "Then humor me. Let's install a security system. If it makes you feel better." She turned back to the vegetables. "But you're worrying over nothing." Her voice was calm, reasonable. But Russ noticed she'd picked up the knife again, and her knuckles were white around the handle. Saturday morning found Russ mowing the front lawn when Ellis Mathers appeared at the fence line. The older man wore paint-stained overalls and carried a steaming cup of coffee. "Morning, Russ. Hot one today." "Sure is." Russ turned off the mower. "How's the wife?" "Oh, you know Dottie. Keeps me busy with honey-do lists." Ellis sipped his coffee. "Say, I meant to mention something to you." "What's that?" Ellis glanced toward the house. "Saw Lennon getting into a truck last week while you were at work. Didn't recognize the fellow driving." Russ's grip tightened on the mower handle. "What kind of truck?" "Blue Ford, I think. Older model. Had some kind of business logo on the side, but I couldn't read it from my kitchen window." "When was this?" "Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. Around 10 in the morning." Ellis scratched his gray beard. "None of my business, of course. Just thought it was odd." "Odd how?" "Well, the fellow didn't come to the door or nothing. Just sat in the driveway honking until she came out. Didn't seem like no repair guy, if you ask me." Russ's jaw clenched. "Tuesday, was when Lennon claimed she'd spent the morning cleaning the basement. Did you see her come back? Not till later that afternoon. Maybe around 3 or 4. Ellis's eyes narrowed slightly. Everything all right between you two? Everything's fine. The words came out sharper than Russ intended. Ellis raised his hands. Didn't mean to pry. Just being neighborly. I appreciate it, Ellis. Really. That afternoon, Russ found an excuse to visit the hardware store. He drove slowly through town, checking every parking lot for blue Ford trucks. He found 3, but none had business logos. When he got home, Lennon was in the garden with Olive. How was the hardware store? She asked without looking up from the tomato plants. Fine. Got what I needed. Good. Dinner's at 6. Her voice was pleasant, normal, but Russ wondered how she knew where he'd been. He hadn't mentioned the hardware store to anyone. That night, he lay awake again, listening. At 1:20 a.m., he heard the soft creak of the bedroom door. His heart hammered, but he forced himself to keep breathing slowly and evenly. Footsteps approached the bed. The mattress dipped slightly as someone leaned over him, a hand brushed his hair, gentle as a whisper. Russ wanted to grab the intruder, wanted to leap up and confront whoever dared to touch him while he slept. But something held him back, a survival instinct that told him to learn more before acting. The hand pulled away. Footsteps retreated. The door closed with the softest click. Russ waited 10 minutes before moving. When he finally sat up, Lennon was asleep beside him, breathing deep and even, but her hair smelled different, like motor oil and cigarettes. Monday morning, Russ called in sick to work. After Lennon left for her supposed errands and Olive went to school, he retrieved the camera from the smoke detector. His hands trembled as he connected it to his laptop. The footage was clear this time, 8 hours of their bedroom in grainy night vision that he fast-forwarded through the evening routine. There was Lennon reading. There was himself pretending to sleep. The timestamp showed 10:30 when the lights went out. AKT 11:15. Nothing happened. At midnight, still nothing. Russ began to wonder if he'd imagined everything. Then, at 2:04 a.m., the bedroom door opened that a tall figure entered, moving with careful steps. The person wore dark clothing and something over their face, a ski mask or hood. The figure approached Russ's side of the bed and stood there for nearly 10 minutes. Russ watched himself sleep, completely unaware of the intruder's presence. The figure leaned down, and Russ saw the hand reach out to touch his hair, exactly as Olive had described. The figure straightened and moved toward the door. But instead of leaving, it walked to the dresser and looked directly at the camera. Even with the mask, Russ could tell the person was smiling. The figure reached up and disconnected something the first camera Russ had hidden behind the picture frame. Moments later, the bedroom door opened again. This time, Lennon entered. She walked straight to the dresser, looked up at the smoke detector camera, and gave a small wave. Then she disconnected it too. The footage went black. Russ stared at the blank screen, his world crashing down around him. Lennon knew. She'd known all along that he played the sequence again, studying every frame. The intruder was male, tall, probably younger than Russ, based on his movement. And Lennon had been awake the entire time. His phone buzzed with a text from her, getting groceries. Home by noon. Love you. Russ looked at the timestamp on the message, 10:30 a.m. According to the bank app on his phone, she'd used her debit card at a gas station 20 miles away at 10:15. Another lie. Russ called Silas Denning from his truck, parked 3 blocks from home. His old army buddy picked up on the second ring. Well, look who's calling. How's civilian life treating you? I need help, Silas. Something serious. The tone of Russ's voice must have gotten through because Silas immediately sobered. What kind of help? The kind you do for corporations when their employees are stealing. Digital forensics? Russ, what's going on? I think my wife is planning to kill me. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Silas said, meet me at Murphy's Bar in an hour. Come alone. Murphy's was a dive bar downtown where construction workers grabbed lunch and nobody asked questions. Silas was already there when Russ arrived, nursing a beer in a corner booth. Start from the beginning, Silas said. Russ told him everything: Olive's drawings, the corrupted footage, the successful recording, Ellis's observations. Silas listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. You still have the footage? On my laptop. Good. Here's what we're going to do. Silas leaned forward. I'm going to clone her phone and computer. Every text, every email, every photo, every deleted file. If she's planning something, there will be evidence. How long will that take? Give me her phone for 20 minutes. I've got software that'll mirror everything to a secure server. After that, I can monitor all her communications in real time. She never leaves her phone anywhere. Then we get creative. When does she shower? Every morning around 9. Perfect. Tomorrow, you call her into another room while her phone's charging. I'll be ready. They shook hands in the parking lot. Russ felt like a stranger in his own life, but for the first time in weeks, he had a plan. The next morning went exactly as rehearsed. Lennon was in the shower when Russ knocked on the bathroom door. Honey, there's someone at the front door asking about the fence line. Can you talk to them? Give me 2 minutes, she called back. Russ texted Silas, who was waiting in his van down the street. While Lennon threw on a robe, Silas slipped through the back door and connected his device to her charging phone. I don't see anyone, Lennon said, looking out the front window. Probably went to the neighbors. Must have been a surveyor or something. Silas was gone by the time they returned to the kitchen. Lennon's phone looked exactly as she'd left it. That afternoon, Silas called with preliminary results. You were right to be suspicious. She's been texting someone named Marcus for over a year. I'm sending you the highlights, but Russ, this is bad. The first message Russ read made his blood freeze. Marcus, insurance pays double for accidental death, Lennon. How accidental? Marcus, breaking gone wrong. Happens all the time, Lennon. When? Marcus, soon. I've been watching him sleep for weeks. He never wakes up, Lennon. You're sure about the garage door? Marcus, he never locks it. Easy access, Lennon. The policy kicks in after 2 years. 3 more months, Marcus. 3 months then. We'll be set for life for us. Read the exchange 3 times before the words sank in. Then he called Silas back. There's more, Silas said. Pictures, email chains, even Google searches about undetectable poisons. This woman's been planning your murder for months. Who is this guy? Marcus Kelton, 28 years old, works at Kelton's Auto Body downtown. Has a record assault, breaking and entering, drug possession. Real prize winner. Send me everything. Russ, you need to go to the police. Not yet. I need more evidence. This is enough evidence. For what? Conspiracy? They'll lawyer up and claim it was just fantasy talk. I need them caught in the act. That's insane. They're planning to kill you, and I'm going to stop them. But I'm going to do it right. Russ became an actor in his own life. He kissed Lennon goodbye each morning, asked about her day each evening, and made love to her twice that week with genuine passion. He never let on that he knew. Meanwhile, he worked methodically. He opened a new bank account and began transferring money in small amounts that wouldn't trigger alerts. He contacted a divorce attorney and had papers drawn up. He researched custody laws and documented every interaction with Olive. He even enrolled Olive in counseling with Dr. Sarah Martinez, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. She's having nightmares, he told Lennon, about the man in her drawings. I think she needs professional help. If you think it's necessary, Lennon agreed. Doctor Martinez was a gentle woman in her 40s who made Olive feel comfortable immediately. During the first session, while Olive played with toys in the corner, Dr. Martinez spoke quietly with Russ. Children this age rarely fabricate detailed, consistent stories about intruders. Has anything happened at home that might explain her fear? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'd like to schedule regular sessions. Sometimes children reveal things to therapists that they can't tell their parents. Whatever she needs. That night, Russ lay in bed listening to Lennon's breathing. She'd been more affectionate lately, probably to keep him unsuspecting. Her hand rested on his chest, and she murmured his name in her sleep. He wondered if any of it had ever been real. Margot Fitz arrived unannounced on Saturday afternoon, which was unusual. Lennon's older sister typically called days in advance and brought her husband. This time she came alone. Is Lennon here? Margot asked. She took Olive to the park. She'll be back in an hour. Good. I need to talk to you. Margot had never liked Russ, and the feeling was mutual. She thought he was too controlling, and he thought she was a busybody who meddled in their marriage. but something in her tone made him step aside and let her in. They sat in the living room like adversaries at a negotiation. I know we've never gotten along, Margot began, but I'm worried about you. Worried how? Has Lennon been acting strange lately? Russ studied her face. Why do you ask? She called me last week asking about Mom's life insurance policy. Wanted to know how long it took to pay out after the accident. What accident? Margot's face went pale. You don't know about Mom? Lennon said she died of cancer. Cancer? Margot shook her head. Mom died in a car accident. Lost control on a wet road and hit a tree. Lennon was the one who identified the body. Russ felt the room spin slightly. When was this? 8 years ago, right before you two got married. Margot leaned forward. Russ, there's something else. Lennon had a fiancé before you. David Morrison. He died too. How? House fire. Happened while he was sleeping. Lennon inherited everything because they'd just updated his insurance policy to include her as beneficiary. The pieces clicked together in Russ's mind like bullets sliding into a chamber. She's not who you think, Margot continued. Our mom was just like her. Cold, calculating, dangerous when cornered. Why are you telling me this now? Because I think she's planning something. The way she's been asking questions, making comments about insurance and accidents. Margot's voice trailed off. I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you, and I hadn't warned you. After Margot left, Russ called Silas. I need you to run background checks on 2 people, David Morrison and Patricia Fitz. Both died in accidents. Both had Lennon as a beneficiary. Jesus, Russ. How many people has this woman killed? I don't know, but I want to find out. Kelton's auto body sat on the outskirts of town, a sprawling lot filled with damaged cars and rusted parts. Russ parked across the street and watched through binoculars until he identified Marcus Tall, dark-haired, probably worked out regularly based on how easily he lifted heavy car parts. He was younger than Russ expected, and handsome in a rough way that probably appealed to women looking for excitement. Russ waited until Marcus was alone in the garage, then walked across the street. Marcus Kelton, the younger man, looked up from the engine he was working on. Yeah, we need talk. Something in Russ's tone made Marcus straighten and reach for a wrench. About what? About my wife. Marcus's face went blank. I don't know what you're talking about. Lennon Rayner. You know her pretty well, I hear. Never heard of her. Russ smiled without warmth. Funny. She's mentioned you quite a bit. Marcus's grip tightened on the wrench. I think you should leave. Oh, I'm going to leave. But first, I want to make something very clear. Russ stepped closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. If you ever come near my family again, you won't leave breathing. Marcus laughed, but sounded forced. Is that a threat? I'm not warning you. Russ grabbed a heavy wrench from the workbench and slammed it into the metal door beside Marcus's head. The impact rang through the garage like a gunshot. I'm making you a promise. Marcus flinched, and Russ saw fear flicker in his eyes. You think you're tough because you can sneak into a man's house while he sleeps? You think you're smart because you can manipulate a woman into planning murder. Russ pulled the wrench free, leaving a deep dent in the metal. Let me tell you something about real men. We don't hide behind masks, and we don't need women to do our dirty work. You're crazy, Marcus said, but his voice shook. Maybe, but crazy men are dangerous, don't you think? Russ set the wrench back on the bench with exaggerated care, especially when someone threatens their family. He turned to leave, then paused at the garage door. Oh, and Marcus? I know about the insurance policy. I know about the garage door. I know everything. Russ walked away without looking back, but he could feel Marcus's eyes on him until he reached his truck. That night, Silas called with an update. Marcus tried to call Lennon 6 times after you left the shop. She didn't answer, but I intercepted a text he sent. Your husband knows. We need to move up the timeline. What did she reply? Nothing yet, but she's been searching online for flights to Mexico. Let her search. They're not going anywhere. Russ's plan required perfect timing and careful orchestration. He spent 2 weeks setting the pieces in motion, all while maintaining his facade of ignorant husband. First, he documented everything. Photos of Lennon's behavior with Olive, recordings of conversations where she dismissed their daughter's fears, videos of her leaving the house when she claimed to be home all day. Then he contacted Janet Pierce at Child Protective Services. He'd known Janet since high school, and she'd become a social worker who specialized in domestic situations. "I'm worried about my daughter," he told her over coffee. "My wife has been acting erratically, and Olive's been having nightmares about intruders." "What kind of erratic behavior?" "Lying about where she goes, dismissing Olive's fears, getting angry when our daughter tries to talk about what's scaring her." Russ pulled out his phone. "I've been documenting everything." He showed Janet the videos and photos. Her expression grew more concerned with each piece of evidence. "Russ, this looks like a pattern of emotional neglect. The child is clearly distressed, and the mother is invalidating her feelings. What should I do?" "File a report. If there's a custody dispute, this documentation could be crucial for protecting Olive." "I don't want to hurt Lennon. I just want to protect my daughter." Sometimes those two things are the same. The report was filed that afternoon. Janet explained that CPS would need to investigate, but the evidence Russ had provided painted a clear picture of a child's emotional needs being ignored. 3 days later, Russ executed the second part of his plan that he took Lennon and Olive to the town square for the weekly farmers market. It was crowded, full of families enjoying the sunshine and local vendors selling produce and crafts. Olive had drawn another picture. That morning the black figure now stood directly over the bed, knife raised above a sleeping figure. "Show Mommy your new drawing," Russ said when they stopped for ice cream. Olive hesitated, then pulled the paper from her backpack. "I drew the man again." Lennon barely glanced at it. "Olive, we've talked about this. These scary pictures need to stop." "But he's real, Mommy. He's gonna hurt Daddy." "That's enough." Lennon's voice was sharp, loud enough to draw stares from nearby families. "I'm tired of these ridiculous stories. You're being a silly little girl, and it needs to stop right now." Olive's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not lying." "Yes, you are." Lennon grabbed the drawing and crumpled it up. "These pictures are nonsense, and if you keep drawing them, I'm going to throw away all your art supplies." "Lennon," Russ said quietly, "people are watching." But Lennon was beyond caring. "She's manipulating you, Russ. Can't you see that? She makes up these stories to get attention, and you fall for it every time." Olive began to sob. Other parents had stopped their shopping to watch the scene unfold. "Maybe we should go home," Russ suggested. "Maybe you should start acting like a parent instead of enabling this behavior," Lennon snapped. "She's 7 years old, and she's running our household with her ridiculous fantasies." Ellis Mathers appeared beside them, his face grim. He had his phone out and had been recording. "Everything all right here?" he asked. "Fine," Lennon said curtly. "Just dealing with a child's tantrum." "Looked more like an adult's tantrum to me," Ellis replied. That evening, Ellis knocked on their door. "Thought you should see this," he told Russ, showing him the video on his phone. The recording clearly showed Lennon berating a crying child in public while Russ tried to calm the situation. It was damning evidence of emotional abuse. "I already sent it to my daughter," Ellis said. "She works for family court. Thought they might be interested." "Thank you, Ellis. That little girl deserves better." Russ received the text message on Thursday afternoon. "Had to go to Pittsburgh for work conference." Back Sunday night, the IT was the opening he'd been waiting for. He immediately called Silas. "They're moving tonight. I need you to monitor everything, every call, every text, every email." "What's your plan?" "I'm going to catch them in the act." That evening, Russ made a show of packing his bag. He kissed Lennon goodbye and told Olive he'd see her when he got back from his work trip. "Bring me something," Olive said, hugging him tight. "I will, sweetheart. Be good for Mommy." But instead of driving to Pittsburgh, Russ parked in Ellis's garage and set up surveillance equipment throughout his own house. Cameras in every room, motion sensors on all the doors, audio recorders in strategic locations. Ellis helped him run the cables and set up the monitoring station in his basement. "You sure about this?" Ellis asked. "They're planning to kill me tonight. This is the only way to stop them." At 9:30 p.m., Silas called. "Marcus just texted Lennon. He's on his way." Russ watched his house through night vision cameras as Marcus's blue truck pulled into the driveway. The younger man got out carrying a large bag and what looked like a knife. Lennon met him at the garage door. Even from across the street, Russ could see them embrace. "You getting this?" Ellis whispered. "Every second." They moved through the house toward the bedroom, and Russ switched to the interior cameras. The audio picked up their conversation clearly. "You sure he's not coming back?" Marcus asked. "He thinks he's in Pittsburgh. We have all night." "Good. I want to take my time with this." Russ called 911 from Ellis's landline. "I'd like to report a break-in at 1247 Maple Street. Armed intruder. Homeowner may be in danger." "Units are responding," the dispatcher said. "Are you safe?" "I'm at a neighbor's house. The intruder has a knife." While they waited for police, Russ continued recording. Marcus and Lennon spent nearly an hour going through the house, discussing how to make the murder look like a botched burglary. "Where should we put the body?" Marcus asked. "Bedroom floor," like he got up to investigate and surprise the intruder. "What about the kid?" "She's at my sister's." "Perfect alibi for me." Russ felt sick listening to them plan his death with such casual efficiency. These people had discussed killing him the way others might plan a vacation. 11:20 p.m., police sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus panicked. "Someone called the cops." "That's impossible. Nobody knows you're here. We need to go. Now." But it was too late. Police cars surrounded the house, spotlights blazing through the windows. "Come out with your hands visible," a voice commanded through a bullhorn. Russ watched through the cameras as Marcus and Lennon were arrested. His wife's face showed no emotion as they cuffed her. Marcus broke down crying. The detective in charge called Russ an hour later. "Mr. Rayner? This is Detective Brooks. We have your wife and one other individual in custody. We're going to need you to come in and give a statement." "I'll be right there." The police station buzzing with activity when Russ arrived. Detective Brooks, a weathered woman in her 50s, led him to a conference room where Silas was already waiting with a laptop and several hard drives. "Your friend here has provided us with quite a bit of evidence," Detective Brooks said. "Text messages, emails, recorded conversations. It's pretty damning. Have they said anything?" "Mr. Kelton is claiming he was hired to do repair work at your house. Your wife is sticking to the story that she thought you were out of town and called him to fix a broken garage door." Russ almost laughed. "At midnight? With a knife? That's where their story falls apart. Plus, we found this in his bag." Detective Brooks held up a detailed floor plan of Russ's house with notes about entry points and escape routes. Hard to explain this as routine home repair. The interview took 3 hours. Russ provided copies of all the surveillance footage, phone records, financial documents, and Olive's drawings. By the time they finished, the case against Lennon and Marcus was airtight. "We're charging them both with conspiracy to commit murder, breaking, and entering an attempted assault with a deadly weapon," Detective Brooks said. "With this evidence, they're looking at serious prison time." The next morning, Russ's attorney called with an update on the divorce proceedings. "The criminal charges work heavily in your favor for custody. No judge is going to grant visitation rights to someone charged with plotting to murder the child's father. What about property division? She'll be lucky to get anything. Attempted murder tends to void prenuptial agreements and spousal support claims." The court hearing was scheduled for the following week. Russ spent that time with Olive, explaining in age-appropriate terms that Mommy had made some bad choices and wouldn't be living with them anymore. "Is she going to jail?" Olive asked. "Yes, sweetheart. For a long time." "Good. She was mean to me about my drawings." "Your drawings helped keep Daddy safe. You're a very brave little girl." The family court was smaller than Russ expected, with wood paneling and fluorescent lights that buzzed slightly. Judge Patricia Manning presided, a stern woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. Lennon sat at the defendant's table with her public defender, a nervous young man who kept shuffling papers. She wore an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. For the first time since this began, she looked directly at Russ. Her eyes held no remorse, no plea for forgiveness, just cold calculation, as if she were still planning her next move. "Mr. Rayner," Judge Manning said, "I've reviewed the evidence submitted by both parties, as well as the police reports and CPS investigation. This is one of the most disturbing custody cases I've encountered." The prosecutor played selected portions of the surveillance footage. Even the court reporter looked shocked as Lennon's voice filled the room. "Where should we put the body?" When it was over, Lennon's attorney stood weakly. "Your Honor, My client maintains her innocence of all criminal charges. These recordings were made without her knowledge or consent, and, Counselor, Judge Manning interrupted. Are you arguing that your client didn't say those words? No, Your Honor. But taken out of context. What context would make planning a murder acceptable? The judge's voice was ice cold. I've also reviewed the CPS report documenting emotional abuse of the minor child, as well as evidence that Mrs. Rayner dismissed and invalidated her daughter's reports of an intruder who, it turns out, was real and posed a genuine threat to the family. Judge Manning looked directly at Lennon. Mrs. Rayner, do you have anything to say before I issue my ruling? Lennon stood slowly. I love my daughter. Whatever mistakes I may have made, I never wanted to hurt her. You planned to murder her father in cold blood. You traumatized her by dismissing her fears and calling her a liar when she was trying to protect the family. Your idea of love is profoundly disturbed. The judge's ruling was swift and absolute. Full custody to Russ, no visitation rights for Lennon, complete forfeiture of marital assets, and a restraining order protecting both Russ and Olive. This court finds that Mrs. Rayner poses a clear and present danger to both the minor child and Mr. Rayner. Contact of any kind is prohibited. As they led Lennon away, she turned back once more. This time, Russ met her gaze steadily. He felt no satisfaction, no triumph. Just the quiet certainty that his daughter was finally safe. 6 months later, Russ and Olive moved to a quiet neighborhood 15 miles away. The house was smaller but brighter, with a fenced backyard where Olive could play safely. Margot visited every Sunday, bringing groceries and helping with household tasks. The sisters' relationship had been destroyed by Lennon's choices, but Margot was determined to maintain a connection with Olive. She looks happier, Margot observed one afternoon, watching Olive chase butterflies in the garden. She's sleeping through the night now, Russ said. No more nightmares. What about you? I sleep fine. Doors locked, alarm systems armed, and there's nothing left to fear. Dr. Martinez continued seeing Olive weekly. The little girl's drawings had changed dramatically bright colors now. Pictures of flowers and animals and family picnics. The black figure never appeared anymore. She's processing the trauma very well, Dr. Martinez told Russ. Children are remarkably resilient when they feel safe and protected. Russ kept one of Olive's original drawings framed in his home office, the first one showing the black figure beside their bed. Not as a reminder of the betrayal, but as proof that his daughter had saved their lives by trusting him with the truth. Marcus had pled guilty and received 12 years in prison. Lennon went to trial and was convicted on all charges. She received 25 years without possibility of parole. The prosecutor had called it one of the most premeditated cases he'd ever seen. The defense had argued temporary insanity, but the evidence showed months of careful planning and calculation. Russ never attended the trial. He'd seen enough of Lennon to last several lifetimes. One evening in late autumn, as Russ was helping Olive with homework, she looked up from her math problems. Daddy, do you miss Mommy? It was a question he'd been dreading, but also one he'd prepared for. I miss the person I thought she was, he said carefully. But the real Mommy made choices that hurt people, and I don't miss that. Me neither. I like it better now. What? Because you believe me when I tell you things. And you keep us safe. That night, after Olive was asleep, Russ sat on his front porch listening to the quiet sounds of their new neighborhood. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car door slammed. Normal sounds of normal life. He thought about the man he'd been 8 months ago, trusting, perhaps naive, certainly unprepared for the depths of human deception. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder and more cautious, but not bitter. Not broken, just awake. His phone buzzed with a text from Silas. How are you holding up? Russ typed back, good. We're good. And for the first time since this nightmare began, that was completely true. People think monsters hide in the dark. The truth is they sleep beside you. Until they don't.